Welcome back to Flanders Tuning, everybody. We're here today because we've got to talk about our poll results. We put out a poll on Instagram and on YouTube about 10 days ago asking you guys which one you would want between the Performance B STI concept and the Performance E STI concept. And we gave you 4 different options with some price points. 325 horsepower at $55,000, 400 horsepower at $65,000 for the Combustion Engine STI, and 500 horsepower at $65,000, or 425 horsepower at $55,000 for the EV STI. And we got almost 1,000 votes in, and it's basically a complete landslide to the Combustion Engine STI, which is probably not a surprise to you. It's about 97% of the votes for the Combustion Engine STI. But what's interesting is that of the 2 combustion options, the cheaper of the 2, the 325 horsepower at $55,000, that's the one that won in both of our polls. We tried to get it up on Facebook as well. The poll is gone. I have no idea what happened to that, so we just got to go with these 2 sets of numbers. But with all that information now, the question is, what does this mean? And what we want to do is kind of like take it in and kind of do a little bit of Subaru's homework for them to make it as clear as possible what you and what us as enthusiasts want from this next STI, because they've got to build something that gets us excited, that actually gets us to want this car and to actually purchase it. Because if they build this car and it comes out and nobody buys it, that's not gonna be a win for anybody, because then Subaru's probably not gonna take a swing like that again. So we really want this to be a home run for them. So we're gonna try and make it easy. So the biggest question in my mind is what is the motivation, or what caused more people to vote for the 325 horsepower option and the $55,000 option? And I think it's because the price point was more of the driver than the power there. I think what this means is that the expectation from the majority of people, at least that voted in our poll here, they want something that's just a little bit more expensive than what the current WRX is, that $55,000 price point. There's a couple of people that even wanted it to be at like $50,000 or less, and I think just in the current environment that's going to be challenging. Honestly, I think Subaru probably, in their minds, this is kind of where their head is going too, because they are traditionally pretty darn conservative. This is just a little bit more performance, or a little bit more power than what the old STI was, and it's a price point fitting with kind of like their old model with the STI. And I think it's dangerous for a couple of reasons. The first one being, this new STI, this Combustion Engine STI, is probably only going to be around for a couple of model years. I would guess somewhere between 2 and 4. So we're probably going to get it for 27, 28, maybe 27 up to 30, just because of changes to emissions and fuel economy standards. I think that there's a narrow window that they're going to be able to build this car, get it certified, and release it for, before things mean that whatever they're trying to do with this Combustion Engine STI, it's not going to be possible anymore. So there's going to be a narrow window, and there's rumors, some pretty strong rumors, of 2 direct competitors for whatever this STI is going to be. The first one being the EGR Corolla, getting a 4-cylinder engine that makes about 400 horsepower. The other strong rumor being that Volkswagen is going to put the 5-cylinder RS3 engine in the Golf R, probably detuned, but probably in the ballpark of 375 to 400 horsepower. And where this is dangerous is if Subaru is very conservative and they come out with 325 horsepower, and now there's not one but 2 400 horsepower competitors that are very similar cars and probably very similar price points to what we're asking for from Subaru, $55,000 or so. I think that could make the STI dead on arrival if it comes out and these things come to fruition. They've got to kind of future-proof it a little bit and know that when they come out with this car, it's going to be good for those, let's say 4 model years. That's going to be able to stand on its own. The other part of this is they're going to have to convert us if we have one of these older STIs or WRXs, because if we just are happy enough with what we have and what the STI is, especially at a brand new car price of $55,000, if it's not different enough, if it's not a big enough jump in performance to get us to say, I love my car, but that is the new hotness, I need that new STI, and sell this car, trade it in on the new STI, the lack of conversions is probably also going to play an effect on how well this new STI does, how well it sells. It has to be a step or 2 beyond what was doable with the older platforms, and that's going to require, I think, more power and definitely an upgrade to the drivetrain. If they come out with this low power and it's just the same STI drivetrain that we've had more or less basically since 2004, the demand is just not going to be there, because that's going to be very familiar to so many people that have WRXs and STIs already. it needs to at least have a big step up in power and ideally a big step up in drivetrain as well. What I'm thinking of here is like, a dual clutch transmission, shiftable 6-7 speed automatic, a more modern all-wheel drive system that gives me torque vectoring, maybe even settings of torque vectoring. Like I get to pick how this works, more adaptive, more adaptive to me as a driver, gives me as the driver more control over the all-wheel drive system and how it behaves. Like a big step up. If this new STI has that and say 400 horsepower, that's going to get me a lot more excited. Right now, if it's the old STI drivetrain and it's 325 horsepower, I'll speak for myself, it's just kind of not on my radar yet. And so that's what Subaru's up against. And so that's where I think they really have to step it up. Like the other thing from all these numbers I think that we can say safely is if they come out with a 400 horsepower STI, but it's at $55,000 or maybe even less in price point, that's probably going to be a win. That's probably going to be a pretty big win for them because of the step up in performance. Like that's, I think, ultimately what, other than combustion engine, what most people are looking for. The other key point that was brought up, we actually talked about it in that podcast that I had with Dewey and Smedia and Art from Overtake. Both types of injection, direct injection and port injection, was a big deal. Many people commented that this new STI has to have dual injection because that's what's going to give it a much higher ceiling with aftermarket modifications, which is a lot of what people that are buying an STI want and expect. They want to be able to, there's a lot of people that are going to be happy with it off the showroom floor. There's a lot of people that are going to want to build it, customize it, turn up the power numbers, and having dual injection, port and direct injection, so that they can use both of those, that's going to be a big key factor. So I think Subaru, hopefully you're paying attention to that. In the comments below, what we need to hear from you now is, what is it going to take for you to buy them? If this car comes out and it is, it's the low power and it's the same old drivetrain, is that a turnoff? Or what is it going to take for you to say, like, I'm perfectly happy to trade in my old STI, my old WRX, sell it, whatever, just so I can get this? Does it need to have a much more modern drivetrain? Is that going to be key? Does it need to have the power figures? Does it need to have 375, 400 horsepower? Like that could be a key ingredient here. The other factor is Subaru's kind of painted themselves into a corner because now in 2026 there are 3 electric options that are all going to have 0 to 60 times under 5 seconds, which is actually significantly faster than the current WRX. And so again, if the STI is going to be the pinnacle of performance, that performance has got to basically beat their own offerings of EVs at least. I know you guys don't want the EV STI. They really have kind of set a standard there that they have to then elevate the STI beyond what these EVs can do. So that's another aspect here. Maybe not in terms of cross-shopping, but I think just seriously, Subaru has to consider it because, well, they made the car. So now you've got to make the STI better, right? So really, in the comments below, we've got to do Subaru's homework for them. We've got to make it as clear as possible what we want as enthusiasts, what that new STI needs to be. So leave it in the comments below. Does it have to have 400 horsepower? Does it have to have a modern drivetrain? And what, does it have to be $55,000 and or below? Or like if they really hit it out of the park in terms of performance, would you buy it up to $65,000, $60,000, whatever? Leave it in the comments below so the clearer that we can make it to Subaru, the clearer we can paint the path to this dream STI that we as enthusiasts want. Hopefully they will listen, hopefully they'll see it, and then they will kind of offer something up. And my final word to Subaru is, you can't leave us dangling on the hook for too much longer. You've got to kind of come out and say, like, here's what we're probably going to do. Because, yeah, the expectations are going to continue to build. Right now we're at 400 horsepower. If you don't tell us anything for the next 6 months, we can now, maybe it's 450 horsepower that's going to have to be for us to get excited about. So Subaru, let us know what you're thinking as soon as possible. For you watching at home, leave your comments in the comments below. Leave us what you want, what's going to take to get you to convert from your WRX STI into this new STI to hopefully make this thing a home run. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for voting. Thanks for support as always. Until next time, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.